Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm really pleased to be joined once again by Oliver Saunders on my channel. How are you doing, Ollie?
I'm very good, Ross. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks. So yeah, we're back with another video. We came up with an idea to do our top 10 albums of the 21st century. We do like a good list based video. So this one we thought we would do. We're already, it's 2025, we're already a quarter of a way through 21st century. So we thought it would be a good idea to maybe take stock and sort of see what some of our favourite albums are. Like slightly more recent albums, or certainly more recent compared to our usual music taste, which go right back to like kind of like the 60s, like both of us, like kind of thing. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to sort of like hear like from Ollie like what some of his favourite more recent albums are, and sort of likewise like sort of like my list as well. Wasn't really many ground rules we set. I think the only key one was that we were limited it to one album per artist, which I think makes sense. Yeah, I mean we probably I was just thinking you could have maybe had a couple of multiple entries from sort of certain artists,
I
but
definitely could, yeah.
yeah, like so we did decide that that would be a rule, but aside from that, it was pretty much fair game. So yeah, I don't know if you want to kick us off, Ollie, with your like your number 10 on your list.
Yes. So all these albums I'm going to show today, I do own on vinyl, except my number 10, the only one I don't own. So instead, I brought my iPad and hold my iPad up with the artwork on for you. But I'll be honest, I'll be very surprised if you've heard of this, Ross. If you have, you can have. I've dropped it. You can have this sellotape if you've heard of this. I'm going with this album, if you can see that. That is called The Silence of Love by Headless Heroes. So, yes, like I say, I don't own this album on vinyl. It's from that period where there wasn't really much vinyl being made, but vinyl copies do exist. They cost like 50 quid, but you've got to get them from Germany, and Brexit means that's too expensive these days. But yeah, anyway, the album. So this is one of my, like I say, it's one of my favourite albums of the 21st century, but it's not one I talk about very often. I kind of keep this one to myself because I don't know how to explain it really. It's just, I take a lot of personal meanings to a lot of the songs on here, so it's a folk record. So, and they're all covers as well, so there's no original stuff on here. They're not like well-known songs for the most part. The way I discovered this album was through Noel Gallagher. He was doing an interview and he mentioned one of the tracks on here called True Love Will Find You in the End. And I listened to it and it blew me away. It's originally by Daniel Johnston, and quite a few people have covered it. Beck, my mind's drawn a blank who else, but there is quite a lot of covers of this song. But of all of them, I think Headless Heroes is the best of the lot. From what I can remember, this album's 2008. It was not a super group, but it was kind of like, I don't want to call it a manufactured group, but it was like, I think Mark Ronson was involved. And he was sort of picking out all these people to play together and make this record. The vocalist on here is called, I've got the name written down here, Eleanor Diane, I think is how you pronounce it. Her voice on this album, it is hauntingly beautiful. It's just her voice makes this album. So yes, the track I mentioned, True Love Will Find You in the End, that is a standout track for me. That is one of my favourite songs, period, this version. But there's some other great stuff on here. Nobody's Baby Now, that's another standout track. I love the vocals and the music, again, it's hauntingly good. Blues Run the Game, Just Like Honey, they're both nice songs. Because I live in the Lake District, on the edge of the Lake District, I like to sometimes go on a summer's night into the lakes and watch the sunset over the hills and stuff and listen to this album. It's that kind of album and that kind of vibe, if that makes sense. So yeah, if anyone watching this has heard this album and they own a vinyl copy and they would like to sell me it, give me a shout please, because I'd love to get this one. But yeah, Silence of Love, Headless Heroes is my number 10.
Okay, no, that is definitely one I've not heard of, so I will need to check it out. You do make a very like compelling case like for like that album, and yeah, you've obviously got a lot of them, like means a lot to you. So yeah, no, very like good choice. That's what this video is like all about. So yeah, my number 10 is not, as you probably have heard of, but probably not familiar with this album at all or anything. But it's a Paul Simon one, and the album's called Surprise.
But if I ever get back to the 20th century, I guess
this is his 2006 album. This one kind of just made the list for me because it was like, it's maybe more of a nostalgic pick because Paul Simon was one of those artists who I got into when I was kind of just getting into music kind of thing. So just kind of getting beyond the Beatles, getting into like him and ELO and that kind of stuff. He was one of those kind of formative artists for me. And this is a bit of a change of direction for him. It was produced by, well, essentially produced by Brian Eno, who'd worked a lot with on Bowie's Berlin trilogy and a more of like an electronic kind of producer, and very much not the kind of style that Paul Simon had been sort of making like up till at this point. So this was probably one of the first kind of don't say like electronic albums because it's not all like electronic, but one of the first kind of slightly different sounding albums that I kind of really sort of like started to listen to again, like so like really like enjoyed. It's just got like some great songwriting on it, like, and I think the kind of the pairing really works well, like kind of Brian Eno's slightly like electronic-y, bubbly kind of production with kind of Simon's slightly more subdued songs. I think is a really good combination. And I'm really lucky to have this on vinyl because this goes for quite a bit of money. As I said, 2006.
Yeah, I was going to say if it's that year, I'm guessing it's a lot of money.
Yeah, I think I got a fairly good deal on Discogs, but it's just one of those. I think you're talking about £200 now for this at least. So yeah, it's definitely one of my rarest vinyls. So I wanted to show it also because I do really, really enjoy the album. It's not when I play too regularly these days, but when I was kind of pulling together the list, I was like, oh yeah, I remember loving that album like for like quite a few years, just as like I was like getting like into Paul Simon. So no, that's my number 10 one.
Number 9. I'm sure this is an artist you've heard of. In fact, you've just mentioned his name before. I'm going with Black Star by David Bowie. Last album, 2016. His swan song. I mean, most people know the story of this album. Basically, he knew he was dying when he recorded this, so this album has quite a lot of themes of death surrounding it. It kind of reminds me in some ways of Station to Station, this album, in the sense that like, the title track is very long, but it's very good. There's not really that many songs on it either. It's only, 7 or 8 songs on it. Obviously, it came out 8th of January 2016, then Bowie died 2 days later, and at the time, nobody knew that he was ill, so it was kind of just, this album came out and 2 days later he was going to die. And from a marketing side of things, if you're going to try and market your album, that's quite a good market. It's not obviously what you want to do, but if you're going to market your album, it's a good way to get people talking about it. But yeah, anyway, the album itself, to be serious, it's quite a dark album. And the title track itself, I think it's a masterpiece of a song. And I love the way, like, for the first 4 minutes, it's quite experimental in some ways with the In the Villa of All, like when he's singing like that, and it's kind of got this heavy effect on his voice. But about 4 minutes in, when it just sort of loosens up the arrangement, and it's just I think it's a guitar, and Bowie's voice when he sings that line, "Something happened on the day he died," it just sends chills down my spine because there's no effect on his vocals, and it's still, he sounds like David Bowie, but an older David Bowie. You can hear the fragility in his voice, and that just sends shivers down my spine. Lazarus as well, I think that's a brilliant. So I think all the singles from this were brilliant, but I would say that this is one of David Bowie's best albums. I mean, as far as final albums go as well, I don't think there's many final albums that top this, especially the fact that he knew this was going to be his last album. And yeah, it's obviously a sad album, but yeah, Black Star will be my number 9. I'm sure you've heard of this.
Yes, I've definitely heard of it. Yes, I definitely I've got it, but it's a record I have probably overlooked actually a little bit. Like I think it was just because it's not like accessible Bowie by any stretch of imagination. I find myself like I listen to like The Next Day more than Black Star, because there's a few more kind of slightly short, more immediate kind of songs like on like The Next Day. I mean, I really do need to like give Black Star like a kind of proper like appreciation, because it's not a record I know awfully well. But yeah, like it's definitely a significant album, and
definitely,
like I remember it, coming out, and it's very like moving. Like records.
I should have said as well, I didn't actually get into Bowie properly until after he died. Which
me too.
It's kind of, I look back now and I think I should have properly, because I knew obviously he wasn't his big songs before he died, but I should have probably appreciated him more while he was still here. But if a good thing came out of him dying, I suppose it made me discover all his stuff, which maybe, I don't know if I would have done it if he'd still been here. I probably would have done, but yeah.
At some point, he definitely, like I was, my Bowie journey stories is very similar. It was after he died. I thought, and just the outpouring of love for him, it was like, well, this guy must be quite good. I'll get his greatest hits, and then like that, Nothing Has Changed CD. I was like, bloody hell, this is good. Then started to pick out the albums. So like there's probably is quite a lot of people who Blackstone might well be one of the first Bowie albums they heard. Just because it was like the one like that was out. Cool. So that was your number 9. My number 9. I'm not sure if you'll have them like on your list. I'm definitely a bigger fan of these than you are. But I'm going for the Lathums. And How Beautiful Life Can Be at number 9 on my list. I just again remember this one coming out 2021, kind of just it was still in kind of COVID-y times, but kind of just sort of like maybe the light at like the end of the tunnel kind of thing. And I just remember being really impressed with this album. It feeling it's a very bright, kind of happy sort of album, like for me. Like I think it is easily their best album. Like the next two, I think they've just got maybe a bit bland, as like they've gone on. But this record just sounds exciting, vibrant. It really brought together a lot of the music that I liked, kind of from the 80s. So you get a bit of the Smiths in there, the House Martins, particularly like Alex Moore's voice is reminded me quite a lot on some of the tracks like Paul Heaton. So yeah, it really kind of like sort of like hit my musical sweet spot kind of thing. I think it's just got their best songs on it. Like the tracks that the Lathums will be remembered for and will be playing, in 20, 30 years time, they will be the tracks from this album. So like there's really there's no topping this like when it comes to like their discography. I just thought I would put it on my list, number 9. Number 9,
I did. It's not on. I haven't got Lathums on my list. I did consider it. That'd probably be about 12th, 13th. But like you say, that's definitely their best album. I don't think the other two come anywhere near that one, to be honest. Anyway, number 8. Another one you'll have heard of, I would imagine. Well, I know you have. I'm going with The Ballad of Darren by Blur.
When the ballad comes for me.
So this was Blur's first album since 2015, and in my opinion, including 20th Century, this is Blur's best album. I really, really like this album.
Better than Dark Life and Modern Life is Rubber.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a moody album, this, and it's largely inspired by Damon's alleged breakup. It's not actually being confirmed he's broken up with his girlfriend, but reading the lyrics and between the lines it was saying in interviews, it sounds like that's what's gone on here. When this album came out in 2023, I'd just gone through a breakup, so I kind of knew what this album, I kind of related to this album quite a lot at that point. So that's probably why I enjoy this one so much. All my albums so far have been dark, maybe the albums, but one of my regrets for this period is I didn't go and see Blur at Wembley. I wish I'd gone, and I know you got to see him at the City Hall, and I'd love to have been at that as well. But I just think that this album, it's a really good album. It's a great production through and through. Some great tracks on here. The ballad, the opening track, that started life as a demo back in 2003 called Half a Song, I think it was called, which is actually released. It was on an EP somewhere. And Damon reworked it into the ballad here. I think that's a great song. I love the way it starts off quite sparse with just Damon's voice and the drums, and then gradually more and more instrumentation comes in. And by the end of it, you've got this full-blown production. St. Charles Square, that reminds me, it really reminds me of the song Scary Monsters by David Bowie.
Yeah, that frick guitar is all over.
Definitely, Barbaric, I think, is the best track on here. I really like that one. Narcissist as well, that was a great lead single. I know Damon these days, he likes to go around with his cartoons and whatnot, but I wish he'd sack off Gorillaz and get back to the day job really and do this, because there's no Gorillaz albums on here, but there is a Blur album. And I'll also say this cover is my favourite album cover of anything in the 21st century. I really, really like this cover. I've actually got 2 copies of this. My other one's framed downstairs. That's how much I like this cover. So, yeah, I like what it symbolises, swimming through a storm. Yeah. So, Ballad of Darren will be my number 8.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it didn't quite make my list. It was number, I think I had my long list. It was number 14. I've got it written down here. So, but I mean, a cracking album, and like you
Oh
say,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
really up there with Blur's very best work. So my number 8. Again, you've probably heard me go on about this band, but I don't think you've ever tried them out. It's XTC. I've got just creeping into my list. So this is their last album for the year 2000. So literally just creeping into like eligibility for like this video. And like I said, like their final album, and it's a return to their more slightly post-punk kind of sort of sound on here. Like they kind of gone through a bit of a journey where they got a bit more orchestral kind of sounds, and like quite I mean their trajectory is quite similar to the Beatles, like in like many ways. Started off like as a touring band, a punk band, and then sort of slowly became a lot more kind of like advanced, like in like the studio kind of thing. So this is almost like their kind of like Get Back kind of album sort of thing, and I just think it's really, really, really strong. I think the songs are great, and they're quite complex, multi-layered tracks, but also quite immediate as well, which I guess maybe some of their previous albums have been kind of like missing. What does a lot of the heavy lifting on this for me though is the final track, which is called The Wheel and the Maple, and that is just it's one of my favourite XTC songs. It's a top 5 song for me of theirs, and it's probably, if I was to do a list of best sort of final tracks, like for like artists, like sort of like last tracks on like your last album, I'd say personally you'd have a hard time beating that track. It's not one of their most popular songs, and this album in general, a lot of XCC fans just place this at like the bottom off like the pile for them. But I think it's a really underrated record. So yeah, Wasp Star it's called here from the year 2000.
Again, I've not listened to any XTC, although funnily enough, I have no idea why. I was reading their Wikipedia page the other day. Couldn't tell you why.
I don't know. Ended up going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, but is that a good album to start with? I know you said it would be the bottom of the list for a lot of people, or...
Yeah, possibly that one, or Black Sea, English Settlement, Skylock. I mean, because that's the thing, like nearly all their albums are like doing XTC ranking is the most difficult thing going, because it's like they've got 2 records which are, I think usually people say like the worst, like the first 2, because they're a bit punky and a bit rough and ready kind of thing. They're not quite as bad, and then from there on in, everything's like kind of like 85-90% albums, like in terms of like scoring them. Probably Skylarking's the best one. It's a very Beatlesy album. I think you would really like Skylarking.
I'll have to try that one then.
That one, yeah.
Yeah, I'll give that one a try. Right then, number 7. We're going 2023, and we are going with the Rolling Stones and Hackney Diamonds. Don't get angry with me. So, the Stones, 18 long years we waited for this album. 18 years they kept saying, we're working on the new album, and then it got to the point where it was just a bit of an ongoing joke of, oh, here we go, they're on about this album. And then it finally came, and in the end, they recorded this in 2 months, just solid 2 months of recording. And the result is incredible, because in my opinion, this is the Stones' best album since Tattoo You in 1981. So this album was produced by Andrew Watt, who came on the recommendation of Paul McCartney. Interestingly, he's been working with Paul McCartney, and he was working with McCartney before this happened, and he's still working with him now. So I wish Paul would hurry up. But anyway, that's another story. Andrew Watt produces this album, and in 2 months, he has managed to do with the Stones something that Don Was failed to do in 30 years. He worked for the Stones, their previous producer, make a good album, because Don Was, I don't know why the Stones kept using him, but it wasn't very good, I thought. But no, Andrew Watt here has really covered himself with a lot of glory, because before this, when I got told Andrew Watt was producing this, I thought, oh, they're just working with some in-producer, like flavour of the month kind of thing. But he's actually a very good producer, it turns out. Now, if you didn't know that this was the Rolling Stones, there is no way listening to this album that you would think this was a bunch of blokes in their 80s. They sound like they're in their 40s, probably. They really don't sound their age. Anyway, lead single, Angry. I think it's a really good Stones track. It's got that classic catchy riff that you have with the Stones, a ding-a-ding-a-ding-a-ding kind of thing. Depending on You, I think that's a great song, great ballad. I really like the punk vibe of Bite My Head Off. That's the one with McCartney on the fuzz bass. Mess It Up, I think, is a brilliant track. It's probably the best track on the album. I'd love to see that one live, and it's got a brilliant chorus. It's got a lot of great guests on here. Paul McCartney, Elton John, Stevie Wonder, Lady Gaga. I mean, you're the Rolling Stones, you're going to get the best of the best. But yeah, I think it's a great album, and hopefully there's another album coming soon, because apparently there was a load of stuff left over from this. So yeah, my number 7 would be Hackney Diamonds by the Stones.
No, very good choice. Yeah, I mean, like, you're definitely a bigger Stones fan than me, but I did buy that album, and again, really impressed with it. You know, it's one of the only. I think there's a big, like, I think the last Rolling Stones album I have is like Goat's Head Soup, and they've got nothing until that one. And I think it does. It stands up to those kind of like those earlier albums.
Yeah.
There's a track, I can't remember what it's called. There's a track on side 2 I love. It's very 60s song. I can't remember what it was called, but
it's not Driving Me Too Hard, is it?
Driving Me Too Hard, yes, it's that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's probably my favourite, like, on the album. And then depending
Yeah,
on
it's a good one, that.
Well,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of great stuff on that record. So no, a good, like a good one to pick there. Now this one, my number 7's probably got one of my maybe most bland album covers, but is a great record. It's that is by Lloyd Cole, and the album's called Standards.
Maybe you know it's not about you.
I don't know if you've heard of him or not. I've kind of talked about him before.
Heard of him, yeah.
Yeah, essentially kind of like, he kind of came in sort of like to promise kind of like the 80s, kind of very similar style to Smiths and Morrissey in terms of his kind of lyrical kind of sort of like lines of like approach, and that had a band called like Lloyd Cole, like, and the Commotions. That's probably is his most well-loved work. And this is my favourite, like, of his solo albums. I think stands up to anything he done, like in like sort of like with like the Commotions. It's just got, again, it's like covers a lot of ground, this album, which is what I really like. I think with Lloyd Cole, Surface albums can get a bit like one-dimensional a little bit. He kind of does like an electronic album, and then he does a folk album, and then he does like sort of like a more like, I don't know, more rocky album. This album, though, is all over the place, but I think it actually really works, and it kind of really brings together like a lot of like his like kind of like different styles. And it's one of these records which there's always something to look forward to, like, on this album. Like, a lot of the albums can be quite front-loaded and then kind of just sort of trickle out towards like the end. But this album, there's always, it ebbs and flows a little bit, but there's always something around the corner that you like really like enjoy. So yeah, I mean, if picking out my favourites, probably there's a track called Period Piece, which I love. It's quite yeah, it's hard to describe that one. It's quite birdsy, I'd say, kind of like the Birds. Track called Blue Like Mars, which is a bit more, again, it's hard to describe. It's quite a spacey sounding track, but really great song. Opposites Days, kind of a bit more post-punky. It's Late, it's a nice acoustic number. So there's a lot of variety like on here, and like I say, I think it's his best solo album by far, and probably second best in like his whole discography, only to Rattlesnakes, which is his, like, I think widely regarded as like his masterpiece. So yeah, Standards there at number 7 for me.
Couldn't tell you anything about him, so yeah, I'll try that album because you've sold it.
Yeah, like if you want to get into Lloyd Cole, that is the one to try, I'd say. Yeah,
right, I'll give that a try. Right then, number 6. So I don't think it's a secret that I'm a Paul McCartney fan, and I thought I can't do a list and not include a McCartney album. So we did a video over on my channel of his best 70s albums, and we're going to be doing at some point his 80s, 90s, and subsequent and 21st century. So I'm kind of going to give away a little bit here. I'm going to pick on the 21st century one. But my number 6, I'm going with Chaos and Creation in the Backyard by Paul McCartney.
Laugh when your eyes are burned.
So this is, I think, in my opinion at least, Paul's most personal album. Some people call it his Plastic Ono Band. It's not quite as brutal as John's Plastic Ono Band, but it is. I get what people mean by that. Lyrically, these are some of Paul's best lyrics, and a lot of this comes down to producer Nigel Godrich, who was one of these rare producers Paul worked with, who would actually tell him when something was crap. He wasn't afraid to tell him, and I wish Paul would work with more people like that. But another thing I liked that Nigel did here was he sort of sent Paul's touring band packing pretty early on, and I like Paul's band. I like Abe and Rusty and all them, but I do. It does annoy me sometimes how Paul on all of his 21st century albums really, except this and McCartney 3, he just uses his touring band all the time, and I wish he'd sometimes bring in other musicians just to freshen it up a bit. So it's Paul playing most of the instruments on his own on here. Again, goes to show the length and breadth of his talent when he can play all these different instruments. But in terms of the tracks on here, I think Fine Line is a brilliant opening track. It's probably about the only upbeat song on here. A lot of it's downbeat. What else? We've got Friends to Go. That's one of my favourite songs on here. It's Paul said it's kind of George. It reminds him of George Harrison, which I can kind of get what he means with that. It's very Beatlesy sounding. Riding to Vanity Fair, best song on the album and one of Paul's all-time best songs. There's just nothing like this song really that he's ever done. It's just so dark, it's so moody. That never happened before. The closing track, is it the closing track? No, the second last track on the album. I really like that. It's kind of like a romantic ballad, which there isn't many of them on here. So overall, it is one of Paul's best albums, regardless. It doesn't matter, it came out in more recent years, if you can call 20 years ago recent. But it's as good as any of his 70s or 80s albums, this one. Yeah, that would be my number 6, Chaos and Creation in the Backyard.
Very good, yeah. I have, spoiler alert, I have got a McCartney album on my list.
I thought you would suddenly.
Right, yeah. But mine's a little bit higher. I'm surprised that's actually as low as it is, actually, because I thought he would have maybe crept up the list a bit, but yeah.
I don't know if it was me trying to think, I don't want to be too predictable and put McCartney up in the top. I thought I'll put him maybe a little further down. So I don't know, I might regret having that low, but there we go.
We'll see, yeah. Okay, well, we will get some more McCartney action a bit later on in the video. So my number 6 is probably band again. I would be very surprised if you've heard of these. They're called the New Pornographers. They're a Canadian band. It's a bit of a kind of, I don't call them a super group because they're not really. It's a super group of people that you never heard of, but they basically were in kind of indie bands in Canada, sort of in like the 90s, and sort of all kind of set in separate groups, and then kind of came together for one album, and it was like, oh wow, we actually can make a pretty good noise together, and then they've kind of from their debut album like in the year 2000. I mean, they've had a pretty consistent run of like really, really good records. The style's probably, I guess power pop's probably the best style, the best way to describe it, because the songs are very energetic. They're quite full fat kind of songs, maybe a bit like ELO and Jeff Lynne's production style. There's quite a lot going on in these tracks, but they've got great sort of vocal harmonies but a bit more edgy than ELO as well. You know, they've got a kind of sort of post-punk sort of feel to them, as well. And the band's also, it's quite unique. There's kind of like this 3 lead vocalists like in like the band, so like kind of like a bit like I guess A Beautiful South in some ways, where it's kind of like different sort of like singers on different tracks. This is their best album, Twin Cinema. It came out in 2005. If I was to recommend songs from it, I'd say probably Use It, Bleeding Heart Show, Sing Me Spanish Techno. Yeah, it's just a lot of great, fantastic songs. They're all very upbeat and great harmonies and clever arrangement stuff. But it's not pretentious either. You know, it's quite a listenable like album like this one. So yeah, Twin Cinema there. New Pornographers, number 6.
I'll have to try that one as well. Yeah. I've never even heard of them. So yeah, that's an all new one on me. That. So my number 5. So I've said a few times on videos that my favourite contemporary mainstream artist is Sam Fender. So I thought I'll have to include a Sam Fender album on here. And if we'd done this 2 months ago, it'd have been Hypersonic Missiles. But since we've decided to do this, I have been torn between Hypersonic Missiles and People Watching, the one that came out just last month. And as it stands at the minute, I am going with People Watching. Now, I might live to regret this, and because it's still properly trying to embed into where how I feel about this album, and I might end up still preferring Hypersonic Missiles, but as it stands at the minute, at the time of recording this is my favourite Sam Fender album. I think this is definitely going to be my album of the year for this year. I think track for track, this is Sam's most consistent album. I think Hypersonic Missiles has bigger highs, stuff like the song Hypersonic Missiles, The Borders, Saturday, Dead Boys and stuff. but I think this album doesn't really drop off, whereas there's certain tracks on Hypersonic that feels more like filler. So what have I got here? So I think the lead single on here, People Watching, is a fantastic song. It's one of those usual Sam Fender sing-along type songs. Nostalgia's Lie, that's fastly becoming one of my favourite songs on the album. Arm's Length, I think it's a brilliant song. It's very Fleetwood Mac sounding, very catchy. It's got a great chorus. Crumbling Empire's great. Something Heavy, I think that's fantastic. Yeah, like I say, maybe in a few months' time I'll regret putting this here and I'll wish I'd put Hypersonic Missiles here instead. But as it stands at the moment, People Watching will be my number 5.
I won't say any more because I've got a Sam Fender album to come. I won't spoil which one, but you probably can guess which one it is. So yeah, we'll get to that. So my number 5 is this album here. It's by Belle and Sebastian. It's called Dear Catastrophe Waitress. Great, Scottish indie pop band, sort of formed kind of like late 90s, and usually late 90s is the golden age for a lot of fans. Like those 90s albums are the go-to ones, and they're kind of like the late and sort of like, let's say, later stuff. I mean, this was still like it'd only been sort of like not even kind of releasing music 5 years before like this album sort of like came out. Sometimes this era gets a bit like overlooked, but this is a great record, and it's one that was a bit of a change of direction for them. Like, they were working on this album with Trevor Horn as producer, so he produced a lot of big hits in like the 80s. He worked with McCartney even on Flowers in the Dirt. He was one of his producers on that album. So it was a bit of an odd mix because Belle and Sebastian up to this point had been very lo-fi and very quite twee and quite like, they had a kind of like indie bedroom kind of feel to them. But this record, working with a big producer, and it really was a great combination because it really helped to sort of fill out their sound a lot more, and just like kept the music like quite interesting. I think again, there's a lot of variety like on this album. So it starts with a track called "Step Into My Office, Baby," which is this kind of quite a McCartney-esque song there. It's a bit like Uncle Albert or Pound Your Sinker, where there's a lot of different sections to it and segments it goes through. It's a really great track. Dear Catastrophe Waitress has got some great kind of brass and strings on it. It's quite dramatic, a bit show-tuney maybe, but it's a great song. It's done really well. And then there's other tracks like Piazza New York Catcher, just stripped back kind of folky stuff. And then probably one of my favourite Belle and Sebastian songs that gives a closer on here, a song called Stay Loose. It's got a kind of bit of an Elvis Costello sort of feel to it for me. So yeah, this is definitely the best album like off like the 21st century, and it's this kind of it's kind of mold that they've kind of sort of stayed with, I guess, throughout like the rest of like their like career really. So yeah, 2003 this one came out, Dear Catastrophe Waitress.
Again, I've heard of Belle and Sebastian. I think I've heard of them through you.
Yeah, they were in my concerts, my top 10 concerts.
That's
brilliant live, like, fantastic live.
Yeah, but I don't really know much about their music, so I'm going to have to go and definitely check them out, because that's twice now we've done a list and you brought them up, so they definitely sound like they're worth checking out.
Yeah, and that is the album to check out, I'd say. Like that was the one where it kind of got to probably the early stuff is maybe more celebrated, like the albums like If You're Feeling Sinister and Boy with the Arab Strap, but I think that's a much more accessible album for someone who's maybe not a fan of theirs.
I'll give it a try then. Right then, number 4. So, again, a bit like People Watching, I was umming and ahhing about what to put here between two albums by this artist, but I've decided that it will be A Dream Is All We Know by the Lemon Twigs. So it was between this and the previous album, Everything Harmony, but I personally think this one's just a tad better, plus it's a bit more upbeat, and I thought I've got enough downbeat albums on here, so I'll have an upbeat one. So Lemon Twigs, they're a very talented band, probably musically one of the most talented bands in the world, I would say, in terms of their ability to write songs and play different instruments and stuff. We're talking about 21st century albums here, but this one sounds like something straight out of the 60s. It's like a forgotten album from the 60s. Lead single, My Golden Years, is fantastic. It's got a very jangly kind of bird-sounding guitar. They Don't Know How to Fall in Place was my favourite song last year. It's one of my favourite songs, period. I think it's a fantastic song. Dream Is All We Know, the title track. It's very Wings sounding with its harmonies and stuff. In the Eyes of the Girl, which they co-wrote with Sean Lennon. That song is fantastic. It's this really kind of like doo-wop kind of sounding love song. I really like it. How Can I Love Her More? It's got a really catchy bit of brass on it. Great song. Peppermint Roses is fantastic. It's got a brilliant chorus which absolutely stinks of like a psychedelic song from 1967. And the closing track, Rock On Over and Over, it's just like a proper full-on glam rock song. So yeah, I am so pleased I discovered the Lemon Twigs, because a contemporary band like this is exactly what I wanted and needed. I've seen them live as well last year, and I want to see them live again. They're a brilliant band. I absolutely love the Lemon Twigs. If you're watching this and you haven't heard them, seriously, give this album a listen. So yeah, that's my number 4. A Dream Is All We Know by the Lemon Twigs.
Yeah, I can certainly second that. I mean, they're a hugely talented duo, and yeah, the music it definitely is. Like, they do wear their influences like on their sleeve, no doubt. You know, they don't sort of try and conceal the fact that they just adore like 60s music. That album, but even then they can do that. But then the last album, the other one you mentioned, like African Harmony, is a lot more kind of. It's got more of a 70s kind of LA kind of feel to it. So they do kind of dart around from style to style, but within their albums, you know, they are still that's a very cohesive album. Like, because it's just got a great feel to it, like, so like all the way through. So now that one was again another one that was very close to sort of getting like on like my list, but yeah, didn't quite make it. So my number 4 again is the more recent one, 2022. This one came out. It's Paolo Nutini's album, Last Night in the Bittersweet. Now, this album really caught me off guard when it was released. Because Paolo's been around for years. 2006 was his first album, and he's very much one of these. He's in and then he goes away for like 5-6 years, and then suddenly that reappears in that. So I remember those early albums. My dad had them on CD, and sort of like liking those songs like Pencil Full of Lead and Candy and all that. So when this album was kind of announced and was released, it was just one of those. I was like, oh, give it a listen, why not? You know, and see what it's like. And the first track is quite psychedelic and it's a bit out there, and then the second song, Radio, it just really goosebumps kind of like that song. Like, for me, it was just such a kind of like, oh, whoa, this is amazing. I think it's more of like an alternative rock kind of vibe, this album. I'd say he started around from style to style, but this album's definitely got a kind of it's a bit more in my sort of musical veins and that, but it's then got he's an amazing singer, very emotive singer, I think, and like the songs he's writing here are just fantastic. So yeah, like Radio, Through the Echoes is a kind of Neil Youngy kind of right sort of style track. Acid Eyes is fantastic. Petrified in Love's this great kind of sort of like late 70s sort of new wavy style track. It's a proper double album, this 16 tracks, so it's quite long, but doesn't feel like overstretched either. You know, I think again there's always something to look forward to, like around like the corner, like on this album. So yeah, definitely like one of my favourite albums from the past what would it be, like 5 years or so, I'd say. Last night was a bit sweet.
It's a great album. I haven't got it on my list, but yeah, it is definitely one of the best albums of the last few years.
Good. I'm glad that I wasn't sure if I'd bought that one or was familiar with it.
I haven't got it on vinyl, but yeah, I have heard it. I do have it on. I think I've got it on Apple Music Library somewhere. So yeah. What are we on, number 3? Is it?
Yep, number 3. Yep.
Number 3. So I like rock and roll. I like band music, indie rock, and arguably the biggest British indie rock band of the 2000s, of this century, really, is if I like myself, it's Arctic Monkeys. And I would say, in terms of like big mainstream guitar music bands, Arctic Monkeys are probably the last of them. I can't really think of any mainstream bands come on along after that. So I felt I had to pick an Arctic Monkeys album, and I'll put my hands up and say, if you want the best Arctic Monkeys album, it's AM. It's without doubt, it is AM. You go and listen to that if you want their best album. But I haven't picked AM. I picked Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino.
Take it easy for a little while, come and stay with us.
And the face you thought there, Ross, is what most people will probably put when they see this album. So this is, without doubt, well, I say that the Car's also quite divisive, but this is a very divisive album because it's the one that came after AM, and it couldn't be any more different from AM. And it is the definition of a grower, this album, because the first time I heard it was on a flight to Florida, funnily enough. But the first time I heard it was like, what the hell is that? And I kept listening, and it just kept growing and growing and growing on me. And now it's to the point where it's my favourite Arctic Monkeys album, third favourite album of this century so far. And if I was going to sit here and listen to an Arctic Monkeys album, I would reach for this one every single time. Like I say, though, if I went to see them live, I wouldn't. This isn't a great album to listen to live. Like, live has got to be AM, I would say, is the best for that kind of thing. But it's a concept album, and it's not often in this day and age you get a concept album. It's a very 70s sort of thing. The album itself, it's sort of. So the concept is it's this hotel on the moon, which is a sort of a resort for retired rock stars to go to, and the songs on the album, it's sort of a social commentary of what's like people looking down on Earth and seeing what's going on down on Earth. Plus, you've got like the staff in the hotel sort of looking at the other guests to see what's going on. And it's a great concept. I just really enjoy it, and I love the concepts of the lyrics on here are fantastic. The opening track, Star Treatment, it sets the tone of this album perfectly. If you don't like Star Treatment, you ain't gonna like the rest of the album. Then the track after that, 1 Point Perspective, it's got such a catchy little piano riff that it's just sort of that the whole way through. It's somewhat annoying, the riff, but it's catchy enough. It's a great song. 4 out of 5. There wasn't actually any singles from this album, but prior to release, but the day it came out, 4 out of 5 was released as a single, and it's a brilliant song. I absolutely love it. She Looks Like Fun is about the only guitar sort of song on this album. And the Ultra Cheese, the closing track, best Arctic Monkeys song in my opinion. It's top notch. The band's performance on that song are just exceptional. So yeah, Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, the controversial Arctic Monkeys album, is my number 3.
Yeah, no, I'll need to revisit that one. Again, I remember listening to it when it came out. I mean, I would never call myself an Arctic Monkeys fan, but you know, it's the biggest album of like probably one of the biggest albums of like the year, like it came out. I'd imagine, well, like the biggest album. So it was one of those. It's like you felt customary to sort of like listen to it kind of thing. And again, I remember it being a bit like, okay, this is going to upset some people kind of thing, but I quite like the song 4 out of 5, and I can't remember what other ones maybe Star Treatment I liked as well, but yeah, I'll need to give it like another listen because it's been a while. So yeah, my number 3 is one you've already shown, and again it's Sam Fender, People Watching. Now, I mean, I know you were saying that you might regret this, but I think this is, for me, I'm comfortable saying this is his best album or my favourite album, like off his. I just think it is just his most consistently good album throughout. Like like you said, with Hypersonic Missiles, that probably does have a few stronger points on it. Certainly, Hypersonic Missiles and the Borders. But even then, I mean, but I'd say tracks like Wild Long Lie and Arms Like the Crumbling Empire and People Watching, every bit as good as those songs. But then there's not the filler like Call Me Lover and what's the other one, like That Sound, I think are just average Sam Fender songs like on Hype Something. I don't think this album like lets up. Like I think it's consistently great like all the way through. He's the best sort of current sort of songwriter and sort of artist going like these days. And yeah, it just shows like you can see like there's a sense of like maturity, and he's growing, he's developing like as an artist like on here. And yeah, I just can't wait to see like what he does next, really, because you're just gonna keep getting stronger and stronger. Like if this album like is like any like indication. I'm seeing him live later this year. I think you are as well, aren't you? You're going to Wythenshawe, is it?
Wythenshawe and St James's Park.
And St James's Park twice. Wow. So yeah, he's absolutely fantastic. I'm surprised he's not actually like either headlining or like forming quite high up the bill like a Glastonbury this year at all.
He was rumoured.
I knew he was kind of rumoured for.
Yeah.
It wasn't he, but then it never came to anything. But no, he's definitely this. I mean, spoiler alert, this will be my album of the year. I'm calling it now. Nothing. Like unless Paul McCartney was to come out with his best album of like the last 20 years, then this is gonna be like my number one.
Yeah, I would agree completely. Right then, number 2. No surprise really that I've got a Noel Gallagher album on the list. I kind of had to. And I struggled between 3 Noel albums, between his debut, between Chasing Yesterday and Council Skies. All 3 brilliant albums, but for me, Chasing Yesterday. If I had to rank everything Noel Gallagher has ever done, including Oasis, so my list will probably be Morning Glory number 1, definitely maybe number 2, this would be number 3. Probably number 4 would be his debut, and number 5 would be Council Skies. So I think this is better than most Oasis albums, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
This is the album that got me into Noel Gallagher and in turn into Oasis. I like the hi-fi version of Oasis. You get the best of both worlds, I feel, on this album. You get still remnants of Oasis Noel on here with tracks like Lock All the Doors, but then you get the more experimental side of him with stuff like The Right Stuff and Riverman. Riverman, like I say, brilliant track. The sax solo on that is just out of this world. It's just hauntingly it sends chills down my spine. Lock All the Doors, it's an old Oasis tune that Noel finally finished here, and therefore it's the most Oasis sounding song on the album. Dying of the Light is a classic Noel song. To me, the lyrics, it's about getting old. The Right Stuff, I think when we did our video ranking our favourite Noel Gallagher songs, this was, I think, my top 3, if I remember right. Yeah, it's the song that got me into Noel Gallagher, which is very strange because it's probably the most un-Noel Gallagher sounding thing he'd done up until this point. Absolutely stinks of Pink Floyd with the saxophones and stuff. Mexican on here, it's got kind of like a Stones vibe to it with its riff. You Know We Can't Go Back, again, that's quite an Oasis-y sounding song, very good. Ballad of the Mighty Eye, brilliant, catchy, great guitar solo on it from Johnny Marr. So yeah, Noel's best post-Oasis album for me. And fun fact, this copy, I've met Noel Gallagher and I had this with me, but I didn't bother getting it out the bag for him to sign because I was that cold, I couldn't get the zip open, so I just got him to sign a little picture instead. So yeah, it should have his scribble on there. It should have done, but yeah. So yeah, that would be like my number 2, not Council Skies, Chasing Yesterday.
Chasing Yesterday. Well, all I can say is snap, because that was my number 2.
Chances.
I know. So yeah, I would probably echo almost everything you said there. Really, it was the album, like yourself. It was the album that got me into Noel Gallagher. I think it was probably either through Johnny Marr being linked to it, possibly, because I think I was into the Smiths at that point, and I was like, oh, Johnny Marr's really good. I'll listen to him. But also about being, I think I was maybe driving to work one day, and it was on Radio 2, and they were playing the Ballad of the Mighty Eye. And I was like, who's this? This is great. And then it's Noel Gallagher. I was like, oh well, I maybe have to go and listen. For me, this has got a very cool kind of like late night kind of feel to it. This album, it's a great album if you say driving at night time to listen to. I think like that's the kind of feel and sort of the songs really come alive and like the like stuff like Riverman and Right Stuff and that, they're just quite like expansive like songs and like he's kind of stretching himself. Like as well, and like you say, it has got that mix where he's doing a few experimental stuff, but then it's also not gonna upset Oasis fans this album either. Like it's not like as you say, like Dying of the Light is those classic kind of like it's got that kind of classic Oasis feel to it, that one, and like Lock All the Doors and we can't go back, kind of similar thing. So yeah, but for me, I would go, my ranking would be definitely maybe number 1. And then this. I think it's better than Morning Glory because there's some filler tracks of Morning Glory I just can't get behind, like Hello and Hey Now. I don't like those songs.
Yeah, fair enough.
This is just a consistently good album throughout. So it was maybe a little bit tough between this and Council Skies, but this is the one I've got that connection to. That like this was the one that got me into Noel, so was the other one I decided to put on. So yeah, Chasing Yesterday would be my number 2.
You're right about it being a nighttime kind of album as well. So the first time I heard the album, The Right Stuff, was the first thing I heard. It was actually at like 1 a.m. on YouTube. I was under my bed sheets, so school night, probably should have been asleep. But Yeah, it just came up, a random video suggestion, the Right Stuff lyric video, and I was like, what the hell's this? I gave it a listen and never looked back. So, yeah. Right then, number one.
The one time, yes.
Number
I'm really not
one.
sure what you would have picked, because I thought you would have maybe gone for Noel at number one or McCartney, but yeah, I'm intrigued.
Go on, have a
I know what it is. Go
on, have a guess.
Well, they begin with B and they're from Stockport.
You're right. Can you guess the album, though?
The album must be Foolish Loving Spaces. Surely.
Very good.
Yeah.
We run around this town for days now.
So, it was actually quite tough picking between this and Gary. And at the back end of last year, I was actually saying that Gary was a better album than this one. But now that Gary's settled in a bit, I still feel weird saying that an album called Gary. But yeah, Foolish Loving. I just feel this album has stronger tracks on it than what Gary does. Gary doesn't really have any big songs on it, like Your Girlfriend or Keeper and stuff. But yeah, this album, Blossoms, is my favourite band in the world at the minute, so I kind of had to have a Blossoms album at least on the list in the top 2, realistically. Can remember the day this album came out, sometime in January 2020, right at the end. And before this album came out, I knew it was going to be good, but I just wasn't prepared for how good it was going to be. It blew my mind, this album, of how good it was. And it never really got its proper moment to shine with its proper tour, because obviously then the COVID stuff all happened. But yeah, it's just another thing about this album as well, the running length. It's perfect. 35 minutes this is, which I love. One of the things I hate about a lot of 21st century albums is they just go on and on and on and on. They're just like, an album, when it goes over 45 minutes, for me, it's too long. But anyway, in terms of the tracks on here, the opening track, You Think This Is Real Life, brilliant song. It's a great song live as well. Great catchy sort of, it's unacceptable, that bit. Your Girlfriend, it's a Blossoms classic now. It's got some very nice slide guitar on it. Keeper, it's a brilliant love song. It's got a gospel choir on it. The Keeper was also the last thing that was written for this album at the very last minute. And it kind of gives you a little taste, a little flavour of the direction they were going to go with their next album, Ribbon Around the Bottom, with the more piano sound of it. My Swimming Brain is another catchy, brilliant song, especially live. Oh No, I Think I'm in Love, has a sort of ABBA vibe to it that I love. Like Gravity, the brilliant closing track. It's very moody and it's quite experimental by Blossom standards. It's a happy album, this, and I have very fond memories around it. That cover, from a long time on my social media, I've been there. That's Bleecker Street Station in New York. I've sort of recreated that cover. It was my picture on all my social media till recently. I think it still is my picture on my YouTube channel, actually. But yeah, so number one, Foolish Loving Spaces. It's an album that means a lot to me. It's an album I have a lot of fond memories of. And yeah, it makes me smile. And there's nothing more really you want from an album than one that makes you smile. So yeah, there you go. You got it. You've called it, Ross. Foolish Loving Spaces.
Yeah, no, very good. Yeah, no, that's also my favourite Blossoms album. Again, it was on my long list at number 13. I had it, so it was in contention certainly. But
shall I have a guess at your number one?
You can have a guess at my number one. Yeah, we've already mentioned it.
It's McCartney. It's going to be McCartney, isn't it?
Yes.
So I'm going to guess Memory Almost Full.
Well, you'd be right. It's never almost full. I've got number one. Which again, like I probably should have said, like at the start of this video, we're not claiming these are the best albums of the 21st century, because you'd be a bit silly if you were saying this is the best. But it's my personal favourite. It's the one I put the most attachment to, because it was the album that really kick-started my kind of Paul McCartney obsession, really. I think by this point I was probably into the Beatles, but then I remember it came free with the newspaper maybe a year after. It came out in 2007. This would be about 2008. It came through the newspaper, and my dad just happened to play it in the car, and I think he was into the Beatles, because I got into Beatles, but not solo Beatles or solo McCartney really. And we both just, I think we remember just listening to this album a lot and really getting into it. And I think it's just that great. And it's probably like a lot of these albums, I feel myself a lot of it. It's kind of like with the artist, it's kind of like shows quite a lot of variety, like on it. And I definitely think that is true with this McCartney album. Because it's got great pop songs on it, like sort of like See Your Sunshine, just great melodic tracks. And he does a few rockers on it, like Only Mama Knows. You've got the zany McCartney on Mr. Bellamy, it's kind of crazy song. And then the kind of like, more reflective stuff like You Tell Me. And I really love the medley at the end and the way he's kind of like, it's not a proper medley, it's not like the Red Bull Speedway medley where it is like a 10-minute chat, you know. They are all distinct songs and then nothing kind of recurs, but they're just kind of cross-faded nicely, and it just gives the end of the album a good bit of kind of momentum, and it feels like you're really going like on like a journey sort of through that second half. I mean, it's not a flawless record. Like, it does have a track I don't like on it, Nod Your Head. I don't like that song very much.
No.
So you could say, you know, why put this number one? Like if there's tracks that you don't like on it, but it's just that nostalgia factor for me, and yeah, it was just an important album for me, kind of like growing up and kind of like getting like into music and sort of like getting like into McCartney, and it is one that I don't really sort of tire off. I sometimes find myself tiring of, say, Flaming Pie or Tug of War. You know, I feel like I can overhear those albums like a little bit, but this is one that I just find myself not getting tired of. So yeah, Mary Almost Full, Paul McCartney would be my number one.
I'm just looking in jealousy. You have a vinyl copy of it.
The vinyl copy is really weird. I don't have you seen a vinyl copy of it?
I will have done, but not for a long time.
Not for a long time, yeah. So it's not actually got a proper sleeve, so there's no spine or anything on it, right?
All right, okay.
So the inner sleeve's separate to it, and basically this sleeve just kind of folds out. So it's paper thin, and it then just folds out, so you get these kind of pictures there of Paul, and then if you fold it out again, you then get a massive picture of Paul, like on the inside there. So it's completely impractical, and this is an album which I just wish they would reissue. So
I don't know why they don't, to be honest. All these albums that aren't on vinyl, I mean, I don't like, even in Driving Rain, you can maybe understand why he wouldn't, but still, you'd think he'd put it out, because surely, rather than constantly reissuing Band on the Run and stuff, he'd make more money putting those albums out.
No, yeah, Memory Always Filled my number one, yeah.
I really like Dance Tonight on that album. A lot of people hate on Dance Tonight, but I think it's a really good, catchy, modern-day pop song, which I think was his last song that was a hit single, I think.
It was. It got into the charts. Yeah, it was. It was a chart hit, and yeah, it's innocent. It's fun, and I do like the way it builds as well. It just starts just in the mandolin, and then by the end, you've got the full drum kit. You've got the electric guitars in it. Yeah, it's a good, fun, harmless song. Yeah.
I say his most recent hit. He's obviously had that one with Kanye West, but we don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that one anymore.
No,
absolutely not.
No, just pretend that never happened.
So no, that's been really good.
It has.
I've really enjoyed going through this. So there've been probably a few unfamiliar ones between us, but a few personal favourites as well, sort of mutual favourites as well. So that's been it's been really fun, and I've taken a few notes and little things to check out as well.
I have too, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So no, it's great to have you back on the channel, and I'm sure we'll do this again at some point in the not too distant future. But for now, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
Understand the words that they were saying, but still I hung around and took it all